Billionaire stunned when Black Beggar Boy said, "I can make your daughter walk again." This story follows Malik Thomas, a 10-year-old drifter with a quiet gift for physical healing, and Claire Donovan, a 6-year-old girl left paralyzed after a car crash. When Malik calmly tells Claire's wealthy father Elliot that he can make the child walk again, disbelief gives way to wonder, as weekly park sessions breathe hope back into one family and spark a community-wide movement for free, compassionate rehabilitation. Malik Thomas was 10. The winter morning he first spoke those impossible words, "Sir, I can help your daughter walk again." He said them softly, like announcing tomorrow's weather, not a miracle that might split grief in half. Outside the Children's Rehabilitation Center on Jefferson Avenue, Birmingham, cold December, wind hissed through a line of impatient parents. Malik sat cross-legged on a flattened shipping box beside the revolving doors, sketching crooked oak trees in a dog-eared notebook. His coat hung 3 sizes too large. His boots were patched with duct tape, and the red hat over his ears had surrendered, all but a hint of its original color. He rattled no cup, raised no sign. Watching and waiting seemed plenty. At the curb, a black Tesla glided to a halt. Elliot Donovan, venture capitalist, sharpsuit creased by exhaustion, killed the motor, but kept the heater running. In back, 6-year-old Claire stared through tinted glass cheeks, pale above a cotton candy blanket, wrapped tight around legs that hadn't moved since the crash. Elliot circled, unlatched the booster seat with practiced tenderness, and lifted her into his arms. The blanket slipped, revealing limbs oddly weightless in his grasp. Claire's gaze clung to the sky, anything to avoid the building that had swallowed so many slow hours. They might have passed Malik unseen, but their shadows crossed his sketchbook. He looked up precisely then. "Sir, I can help your daughter walk again," he said. Elliot's stride faltered. Something in the boy's tone, calm, unquestioning, impossibly sure, froze him harder than the wind. "What did you say, I can help her walk?" Malik repeated, standing notebook clutched against his chest. Elliot's glance swept the taped boots, frayed cuffs, smudged fingers. Scam Street prank. He tightened his grip on Claire and marched into the lobby without replying, yet Malik's certainty lodged beneath his ribcage. During therapy, while clinicians chanted familiar phrases, "Long road, neuroplasticity, manage expectations," Elliot nodded, but heard none of it. He kept seeing that small figure at the door and hearing that flat declaration. By late afternoon, he carried Claire back out into a sharper wind. Malik hadn't moved. Same box, same quiet eyes. Elliot buckled Claire into the Tesla, shut the door, then stalked over. "You again," he muttered. "Think this is funny, no, sir? You don't know her story." "I don't have to," Malik said. "I can still help. You're 10, almost 11. You live on the street." "Not always." Malik's fingertips brushed the dog-eared notebook. "My mom was a physical therapist. Before she died, she taught me what she could." Elliot scoffed. "You watched a couple stretches and now you're a doctor. I watched her get a man out of a chair after 5 years. No machines, just her hands and his will." A janitor, pushing a mop bucket, nodded at Malik as if to an old friend. A nurse waved casually, like the boy belonged more than most patients. Elliot's irritation thinned into reluctant curiosity. "I'm not giving you money," he said. "I never asked." "Then what? 1 hour," Malik replied. "Tomorrow, Harrington Park at noon. Let me show you." Elliot glanced at the Tesla. Claire was listening, head tilted like a sparrow. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "I should call security," he muttered. Malik waited. "I should walk away." Elliot tried again, but the words sounded hollow even to him. "Fine. 1 hour. If you're late, we're done." "I'll be there," Malik said. Elliot turned. In the mirror, he saw the boy still standing small and immovable, as though the rest of the world had shifted, and only Malik stayed true. That night, Claire wheeled into her father's study, while spreadsheets glowed uselessly on his laptop. "Daddy," she whispered, "who was that boy?" Someone confused. He said, though the conviction slid off his tongue. "He looked certain," she murmured. "Certain I could walk." She tapped the wheelchair arm with 2 fingers, tiny footsteps marching on polished wood. Elliot watched something ancient stirring beneath months of numbness. It felt reckless, brittle like testing ice over deep water. It felt impossibly like hope. Elliot barely slept. All night, the boy's promise skated across thin sheets of hope, threatening to crack under common sense. Yet at 11:55 a.m., he found himself steering the Tesla onto the weed-lined curb of Harrington Park. Claire sat upright, eyes bright with the reckless optimism only children can wield. A few oak branches rattled overhead, but the place was mostly empty. Just a rusted swing set a cracked basketball half-court, and Malik already waiting on the grass beside the largest tree. The boy looked smaller in daylight, but his expression had not changed. Laid out on a folded towel were odd supplies: a sock filled with still steaming rice, a tennis ball, a jar of cocoa butter, no bigger than Malik's fist, and a cracked plastic water bottle. He nodded when Elliot approached, then turned to Claire with surprising solemnity, as if greeting an old friend. "It's good to see you again, Claire." Her smile came shy, but genuine. Elliot exhaled, unsure whether he was relieved or terrified. Malik unfolded an extra towel onto the grass. "Can she sit here?" Elliot hesitated, then lifted Claire from her chair and settled her onto the towel. Malik handed the rice pack to Elliot. "Warm, not hot. Helps loosen tight muscles." He placed Claire's small ankles on his lap and waited a full minute, letting the heat seep in. A thin vapor curled into the air. "What exactly are you planning?" Elliot asked, kneeling close enough to intervene. "Basics, first," Malik said. "Range of motion, sensory mapping, breath. Words a seasoned therapist might use, yet delivered in a voice that still cracked on certain consonants." He began gentle rotations of Claire's ankles. Slow circles, no tension. Claire watched his face more than her feet, maybe trusting the calm she found there. After each rotation, he tapped the sole of her foot and asked anything. Every time she shook her head, no. Malik showed no disappointment, just continued. Elliot's phone buzzed 3 times, investor queries ignored. He couldn't look away from those small, careful movements. 20 minutes in, Malik slipped the tennis ball beneath Claire's arch and rolled it back and forth. "Brain reminder," he murmured. "Pressure tells nerves they still have a job." Claire giggled at the ticklish sensation, the first sound of real delight Elliot had heard in months. He stared startled, as if laughter were a foreign language. When Malik switched to massaging the tendons behind Claire's knees, Elliot found himself asking, "Did your mother use these exact steps?" "Same order, same pace," Malik said without pausing. "Body likes rhythm." A light wind tugged at the boy's oversized coat, exposing a seam stitched repeatedly with mismatched thread. Elliot swallowed hard. "Claire," Malik said, after half an hour, "try thinking about wiggling your big toes. Not forcing, just sending the thought like a letter." Claire closed her eyes, brow furrowed. Nothing happened, but Malik nodded, as though she'd performed a miracle. "That's good," he encouraged. "Letters need stamps. We're finding the postage." Elliot almost laughed, almost at the absurd metaphor, yet something unclenched in his chest. The session lasted just under 60 minutes. Malik ended by rubbing a pea-sized dab of cocoa butter into each foot, then wrapping them in the towel. Heat locks the message in. When Elliot lifted Claire back into her chair, she felt heavier, the nice kind of heavy, the kind that meant she was finally tired from something besides sitting still. Malik stood wiping grass from his knees. Elliot reached into his coat, produced a folded 50. Malik stepped back, shaking his head. "That wasn't the deal," he said. "Then why do this?" Elliot asked, frustration edging into awe. Malik glanced at Claire, who was tracing the outline of her foot with one fingertip, as though it were newly discovered land. Because she smiled, he answered simply. Claire looked up at Elliot. "Can we come back?" she whispered, voice trembling with timid hope. Elliot's reply surprised even himself. "Same time next Sunday." Malik nodded once, already packing his modest kit. As the Tesla pulled away, Claire craned her neck to keep him in view. Elliot glanced in the mirror and saw the boy under the oak, tiny against the winter sky, but impossibly steady, like a promise tied to the earth. All the way home, Claire kept touching her toes through the blanket, checking for sparks of sensation. Elliot gripped the wheel, feeling the unfamiliar ache of anticipation. He did not know whether faith was science magic or madness, but he knew he would park by that oak tree again in 7 short days. 7 short days later, Elliot eased the Tesla beneath the same oak tires crunching over last week's flattened grass. Claire pressed her face to the window, searching until she spotted Malik, kneeling on the familiar towel, warming a fresh rice pack against his chest. The boy looked up, gave a small wave, then returned his focus to a cheap digital watch, counting down the final seconds to noon, as if therapy were sacred once the minute struck. Elliot carried Claire across the chilly grass, while Malik arranged the kit with ritual precision tennis ball, cocoa butter, a length of elastic band new since last session. Borrowed it from a church gym. He explained, then guided Claire into place. Her cheeks were pink from the cold, but in her eyes shone something Elliot hadn't seen since before the accident: anticipation, not fear. They began exactly as before, heat gentle rotations, light taps. Yet Malik layered new drills between the old ones, asking Claire to visualize her knees lifting, while Elliot counted breaths to steady the rhythm. At the 20-minute mark, Malik slid the elastic around Claire's ankles and had Elliot hold both ends. "Just picture pushing outward," he told her. "Even if nothing moves, the thought chisels a path." Elliot felt Claire's muscles quiver, not motion, but an electrical readiness beneath his fingers. She frowned in concentration, tongue poking from the corner of her mouth, every bit the determined child she used to be atop monkey bars. When the band slipped free, she gasped, disappointed, yet Malik grinned. "That was your body trying," he said. "Trying is the first flex." A nurse walking her terrier paused by the fence. Recognition widened her eyes. She whispered to someone on her phone before hurrying on. Elliot noticed, but said nothing, unwilling to break whatever fragile luck was forming here. After an hour, Malik capped the cocoa butter and sat back on his heels. "Same time next week?" he asked. Claire answered before her father could. "Yes, please." Elliot nodded, voice stuck somewhere between gratitude and disbelief. He opened the frunk to stow Claire's wheelchair and found a grocery bag he'd packed on impulse: bottled water, granola bars, a spare pair of wool socks. He hesitated, then handed it to Malik. The boy's eyes widened, but he merely said, "Thank you," and tucked it beneath his coat as if afraid it might vanish. On the drive home, Claire spoke nonstop about how the band felt like thunder around her legs, how Malik's hands were warm, even through gloves, how next week she would make her toes dance. Elliot listened, the ache of anticipation blooming again. Over the next 3 Sundays, the ritual deepened. Week 3. Malik introduced low-tech mirror therapy, holding a cracked hand mirror, so Claire could watch her reflection attempt to wiggle toes the way healthy feet might. Week 4. He taught Elliot to knead trigger points behind Claire's knees, while she recited the alphabet, tricking body and mind into sharing bandwidth. Week 5. An unseasonably bright morning, Claire's left big toe twitched. Tiny, almost imagined, yet unmistakably hers. She squealed. Elliot dropped the rice pack. Malik allowed himself a single fist pump before returning to calm instructions. "Remember that pathway," he told Claire, touching her ankle like a lighthouse keeper, aiming a beam. Elliot's vision blurred. For a breath, he feared the miracle might scare itself away. After that breakthrough, Elliot could no longer stand by. He knelt opposite Malik, each session palms, learning the geography of his daughter's tendons, counting seconds under his breath, the way Malik did. One Sunday, he brought 2 fold-out chairs and a thermos of cocoa. Malik accepted a cup, cupping it in both hands, astonished by the simple heat. Between sessions, Elliot found himself scouring medical journals late at night, comparing drug trials he'd once pinned hopes on to the raw, relentless simplicity of a boy with duct-taped boots. He started measuring Claire's calf circumference, charting sleep patterns, anything to prove the progress was real and not grief-born fantasy. Every metric edged upward. Week 6 arrived with slate clouds and scattered drizzle, but Malik was already under the oak towel, spread like a welcome mat. Elliot parked closer to the curb and hurried Claire over before the rain thickened. Malik greeted them with an umbrella, fashioned from plastic trash bags taped to a broken golf club. "Keeps the rice dry," he said with a shrug. They worked in near silence, rain pattering above Elliot, counting breaths. Mid-stretch, Claire bit her lip and whispered, "Dad, I feel pressure." Malik stopped, eyes sharp. "Where?" She tapped her right heel. Elliot slid a finger beneath her foot. Her arch pressed faintly back. Tears blurred his sight. He looked at Malik, wordless question, trembling between them. The boy nodded once. Next time, he said softly, "We teach that heel to push." Next time, Malik had promised, "We teach that heel to push." Yet when next time arrived, the 7th Sunday, since an overconfident boy had intercepted a billionaire's despair, the park felt wrong from the moment Elliot rolled to the curb. Storm clouds sagged so low, the oak branches scraped their bellies, and a brittle wind rattled the chains of the abandoned swing set. Malik stood waiting as always, but his smile rarely faltered. Today, it never even tried. Claire sat rigid in the passenger seat, arms folded, lips a hard line. She wouldn't look at the tree, the towel, or the boy whose certainty had buoyed her for weeks. Elliot opened the door, heart thudding at an unfamiliar weight in the air, a gravity that tugged optimism toward the ground. Claire refused his outstretched hands. "I don't want to," she said, voice flat. Malik stepped forward. "Is it pain? We can go slower." "It's pointless." She cut in, eyes fixed on the dashboard. "I tried yesterday. Nothing happened. Nothing ever happens." Elliot knelt beside her seat, grasped a small shoulder he had once carried on his back during piggyback races. "Honey, yesterday was just one day. I tried." Claire's shout shocked even her. Elliot flinched. Malik's face didn't change, but his hands opened as though catching something fragile tossed in anger. Rain started, the first drops slapping against the windshield. Malik turned to Elliot. "Can we sit in the car for a minute?" Elliot nodded, slid behind the wheel. Malik climbed into the back. The Tesla felt warmer than the world outside, but tighter too, as if the air were shrinking. For a long breath, none of them spoke. Wipers carved crescents across glass. Then Malik leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Claire," he said quietly, "do you ever think I get tired?" She didn't answer. "Do you think I never sat in a shelter bathroom and cried because Mom couldn't afford her own medicine?" His voice remained steady, describing heartbreak as though it were geography they were all forced to memorize. "I'm tired a lot. And mad. But if I stop, the part of me that wants to help people might stop too." He reached, tapped her blanket-covered shin. "I need that part. And you need the part that still wants to walk." Claire's jaw trembled. Tears slipped down without permission. "I'm scared," she whispered. Elliot felt his chest crack. She had never spoken that truth aloud. He opened his mouth, but words clogged behind emotion Malik had somehow conjured from silence. "I'm scared too," Malik admitted. "Scared every time we try something new. Scared it won't work. Scared it will. And then I won't know the next step. But scared doesn't mean stop. It means you're close to something big." Claire wiped her cheeks with the back of one hand. Outside, rainlight shimmered across the grass. Malik waited, the patience of seasons in his stillness. Finally, Claire sniffed. "Okay," she said so softly Elliot barely heard. They emerged into drizzle that smelled of clean slate. Malik spread the towel beneath the oak, its leaves thrashing overhead, and Elliot lowered Claire onto the damp fabric. Water speckled her hair and Malik's ragged coat, but the boy worked without haste, sliding the rice pack hotter than usual to fight the chill. He avoided the elastic today, choosing gentle pressure over challenge, coaxing, rather than commanding. Claire closed her eyes, breathing slow counts that mirrored Elliot's whispered numbers. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Rain tapered to mist. Malik tapped the heel they had vowed to teach. "Brain letter," he reminded, tone almost playful, despite the gray. "Address it. Dear heel, time to push. Claire's brow furrowed. Nothing. She grimaced. Again, Malik said. Another silent plea. Another stillness. Elliot felt despair coil for a killing strike, but Malik's expression remained serene, as though he could see roots growing underground. Once more he said, voice low enough for only Claire to hear. Talk to it like it already knows the way. Claire drew a shaking breath. Push, she mouthed. Her heel slid forward half an inch, maybe less yet, clear as sunrise. Elliot gasped. The rice pack slipped from his hand into wet grass. Claire's eyes flew open, unbelieving. Malik didn't cheer. He exhaled, nodding as though confirming a law of physics. Feel that, he asked. Claire's answering smile cracked wide through tears. I moved it, she said, astonished. You did, Malik agreed. Your brain found the path. Elliot knelt, hands trembling, pressing fingertips to the damp sole. It pressed lightly back the faintest hello from a limb, long silent. He looked at Malik. Questions, gratitude, wonder none fit, so he simply breathed, letting the rain hide his tears. They ended the session early, soaked but unbroken. When Elliot buckled Claire into her seat, she gripped his wrist. Next week, we teach the whole foot, she declared, fearless, as children born anew. Malik, packing his kit, heard and smiled for the first time all day. Next week he echoed, and somehow the promise felt larger than the storm-washed sky. Next Sunday arrived like a kept promise. The sky still carried bruises from last week's storm, but Harrington Park felt lighter, as if every drop that had soaked them had rinsed away doubt. Malik was already under the oak at 11:45, lining up the towel rice pack elastic band, and a new addition, 2 rubber bracelets knotted into figure eights. When Elliot and Claire rolled across the grass, the girl's grin could have powered streetlights. Whole foot today, she announced before Malik even spoke. He nodded, eyes shining. Whole foot. They warmed muscles, rotated joints, then slipped the elastic beneath Claire's heels. Elliot anchored one end. Malik took the other. Claire inhaled, whispered her private command, and pressed. This time, the heel thrust forward a full inch, sliding damp towel beneath it. Then again stronger. Elliot's heartbeat roared in his ears. Malik calm. As Sunrise said, now toes down, feel the ground. Claire's toes curled. Not much, but visibly. She gasped, then laughed, the sound sharp and wild enough that a woman walking her terrier across the path stopped and stared. The woman, a pediatric nurse named Serena, recognized both the billionaire whose daughter once filled a therapy ward with silence and the ragged boy who used to sit by the hospital doors. She lingered behind the fence, phone lifted, capturing a few seconds of Claire's foot, nudging life back into soil. The session ended with hot cocoa from Elliot's thermos and careful stretching instructions for the coming week. Claire waved goodbye, as if leaving a birthday party. Malik stayed under the oak sketchbook, open, drawing the outline of a foot stepping beyond its own shadow. Serena's short video traveled faster than gossip from her group chat to a hospital break room to an allied health subreddit. 3 days later, a physical therapist cornered Elliot in the rehab lobby. Heard your daughter's making unexpected gains, she said, eyebrows high. Elliot answered with a cautious smile that gave away more than words could. The therapist asked how, and Elliot's reply. A kid in the park spread like a benign rumor, desperate for sunlight. The following Sunday, 2 extra families waited by the fountain, a father guiding his daughter with a stroke-stiff arm, and a mother steadying a boy whose walker dwarfed his frame. Malik blinked, surprised, but recovered fast. We'll share the hour, he said, dividing warm packs, cutting the towel into strips for makeshift straps. He coached parents on ankle circles, knee lifts, breathing counts. Claire, seated nearby, became assistant coach, demonstrating how to speak to a stubborn foot as if it were an old friend rather than a broken machine. Word of free movement sessions spiraled outward. Week 9 counted 5 families. Week 10, 11. A local pastor started lugging folding chairs from his van. A diner owner donated bagels and small cups of apple juice. Someone printed flyers, bright ink on cheap paper, reading Sundays at noon Harrington Park Community Mobility Class. All ages. No cost. They never listed Malik's full name at his request, but volunteers whispered it anyway, reverent as a hymn. Elliot watched the humble explosion of need and resolve with an awe that dwarfed market swings and quarterly returns. Between sessions, he surfaced connections once used for mergers and fundraising this time, in service of children whose insurance had long maxed out. He called a friend who owned a sporting goods warehouse. Resistance bands arrived by the crate. Another acquaintance ran a print shop. Laminated instruction cards followed. But Elliot never announced these gifts from a podium. He simply carried boxes from his trunk, placed them beside Malik's towel, and let the boy hand hope out like candy. One breezy afternoon, a journalist from the Birmingham Sunday Post approached, notebook in hand. She tried interviewing Malik, who shifted from foot to foot, and answered every question about himself with a sentence about someone else's progress. Frustrated, she turned to Elliot. "Why protect his story?" she asked. Elliot glanced at Malik, crouched beside a giggling toddler, guiding tiny legs through a rubber band. "Because the story isn't his," Elliot said. "It's theirs." The article ran anyway, page 2 beneath the fold headline, "Trimmed for Spaceboy, in Park Helps Dozens Heal." They printed Malik's age and first name, nothing more. Yet, that was enough for strangers to step forward. A retired doctor offered mentorship. A tutoring nonprofit sent volunteers with algebra worksheets and history flashcards. A welding class from the community college built adjustable wooden balance bars and installed them between the oak and the basketball court. Claire noticed everything. One evening, rolling across the living room carpet, she looked up at Elliot. "When I walk again, I want to stay and help," she declared. Elliot's throat tightened. He nodded. Malik, sketching at the dining table, lifted his eyes. "That's the plan," he said. Late that night, Elliot found Malik in the guest room, taping a new page into his notebook. A rough logo of 2 stick figures, one helping the other to stand beneath 3 hand-drawn words, "Steps for All." Elliot crouched beside him. "Ready to make it real?" he asked. Malik traced the letters once more, then closed the book with careful finality. "We already did," he replied, and outside the window, Harrington Park's lone street lamp flickered, like it too was trying to step into brighter light. The notebook snapped shut. The street lamp outside flickered once more, and the room settled into a quiet Elliot hadn't felt in years. By dawn, that quiet was gone. Replaced by tape guns, phone calls, and a to-do list, Malik wrote in block letters across the kitchen whiteboard, "Permit Mats volunteers kids." He underlined kids twice. Elliot started with the permit. A friend at City Hall promised a fast track on an unused recreation hall, 2 blocks south of Harrington Park. Malik and Claire wheeled through the echoing space. That afternoon, cracked linoleum, dusty mirrors, water-stained ceiling tiles. Malik touched the warped ballet bar, then sketched an upgrade in his mind. Claire pointed at an empty wall. "Balance maze," she said, remembering an obstacle course from therapy days. Malik nodded, added maze beneath kids. By week's end, the place smelled of fresh paint and industrial cleaner. College volunteers laid foam mats, while a welding instructor bolted balance rails to studs. Elliot fielded cautious questions from reporters. Why trust a 10-year-old with no license? He answered with numbers. 12 children regained measurable function in 8 weeks. 0 injuries, 1 community transformed. Still, paperwork lagged. The fire marshal wanted new exit lights. The health department wanted hand-washing stations. Malik's shoulders tensed each time a clipboard appeared. One icy morning, the marshal returned frowning at an unplugged floor fan. "Code violation," he said. Malik's jaw tightened. Claire, practicing toe taps nearby, stopped mid-count. Elliot stepped in. "We'll handle it today." The marshal left, leaving doubt in his wake. That night, Elliot found Malik at the rec hall doorway, hood pulled up, gazing at darkened equipment. "What if they shut us down?" the boy asked. "Then we move the mats back under the oak," Elliot replied. "But we won't stop." Malik exhaled slowly. "Stopping feels easier than having this taken away again." "It's harder," Elliot said, "to watch hope disappear because you never fought for it." He handed Malik a folder non-profit registration papers, preliminary board list, a modest starter fund, seeded from Elliot's own account. Steps for all needs a spine, he added. Sign, and it has one. Malik's hand shook above the signature line. I don't know half these words. I'll teach you, Elliot promised. They submitted the forms on a Wednesday. The approval stamped through Friday morning just in time for the first open session. Families arrived carrying yoga mats, old crutches, and more expectancy than fear. Serena the nurse checked vitals. The welding students acted as spotters. Elliot manned the snack table. Malik moved from station to station like a conductor, adjusting ankle straps, timing heel pushes, praising every millimeter of motion. Near noon, Claire gripped a new parallel bar, set at hip height. Malik stood in front, palms hovering over her knees. Ready, he asked. She nodded, inhaled, and lifted both feet an inch, then two. Malik stepped back half a pace. Elliot across the room froze. Claire's arms trembled, but she took one step forward, another, and then a third unaided, before sinking to the mat, laughing and crying at once. Applause rose ragged and real. The fire marshal, drawn by the noise during a follow-up inspection, paused in the doorway. He watched Claire stand again, this time steadier, before quietly marking his clipboard. Exit lights are installed, he said to Elliot on his way out, voice softer than before. Keep them on. That evening, Malik stared at the rec hall's new sign, Steps for All Rehabilitation Project, lit by those very exit lights reflecting off fresh glass. Elliot handed him a worn envelope filled with small bills and coins, the day's unsolicited donations. Malik counted twice, stunned. People trust us, he murmured. They trust what they can see. Elliot corrected, gesturing to children practicing heel slides under volunteer eyes. And they see you. Malik tucked the envelope into his coat. Next Sunday, we add core strength stations, he said, already planning. Claire nearby balanced on a foam cushion, arms out like airplane wings. She caught Malik watching and grinned. And after core strength, she called we tackle running. Malik laughed, a sound Elliot realized he'd never heard before, bright and reckless. One step at a time, the boy answered, but his gaze drifted to the far end of the hall, where an unused treadmill gathered dust. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine Claire on it, feet moving so fast, the past could never catch her. Malik couldn't shake the picture of Claire sprinting across that treadmill. The image lodged behind his eyes, slipped into every soccer ball bounce of his heartbeat, and turned each new Sunday into rehearsal for a race that didn't yet exist. He shortened the parallel bars another centimeter, swapped the foam cushion for a wobble board, and tacked a single word on the whiteboard: schedule run. Claire noticed. She didn't tease him. She only smiled because she'd been seeing the same future and was ready to chase it. News cameras finally showed up. A local station aired a 2-minute segment, shaky footage of kids practicing heel pushes. Claire taking 5 unassisted steps, Malik's clipped explanation of neuro messages and memory in muscle. Donations spiked overnight, thousands. In small bills, a surprise check from a church downtown, and an email from a national sports equipment company offering refurbished treadmills for educational use. Malik read the email twice, certain it was a prank, before handing the phone to Elliot with wide eyes and no words. Elliot replied on Steps for All letterhead before the doubt could attack. 3 treadmills arrived by pallet on the 11th Sunday since the Oak Tree sessions began. Volunteers wrestled them into position. Malik wiped grease from the belts like a jeweler polishing new gems. Claire rolled up, studying the nearest console. Fastest you ever ran? She asked Malik. He considered. Never timed it. You'll be quicker anyway. Bet, she whispered, voice fizzing with bravado, that 3 months earlier had been buried under blankets of resignation. They started slow. Malik set the belt at half a mile per hour, just enough to make standing an act of faith. Elliot and 2 spotters flanked Claire, hands, hovering but not touching unless she wobbled. Claire placed her feet one, then the other on the rolling surface. Malik met her eyes. Letter to your legs, he reminded. Dear legs, follow the ground. She nodded, inhaled, and the belt carried her backward until her hips remembered to swing. One step two. She clutched the rails, knees quivering, but she didn't fall. She found the rhythm, and the room forgot to breathe. Up it, she said after 30 seconds. Point two. Malik agreed, fingertip tapping the arrow. The belt quickened. Claire adapted stride longer now, face flushed with fierce concentration. Elliot's chest hurt from holding joy in suspension. Another bump in speed. Another. Then Malik stepped back, arms crossing his chest the way Elliot's had once been a wall. Now it was Malik's act of trust. Claire ran not far, not fast, but undeniably ran tiny shoes, drumming 6 blessed seconds before she stumbled into Elliot's safe arms, laughing and crying as flashbulbs burst. That clip traveled faster than rainwater downhill. Within 48 hours, the Birmingham Herald splashed a front-page photo of Claire mid-stride under the headline, "Running on Heart." Corporate donors called. A state senator visited shaking Malik's hand like he was a dignitary. Elliot fielded offers to franchise the program. He turned them away, at least for now, protecting the fragile soul that lived between sweat and second chances. Months folded into each other. The rec hall expanded into the vacant grocery next door. A retired architect redesigned the space for free. Malik, newly 12 balanced algebra worksheets on his knee during breaks, determined to qualify for early entry high school science classes. A medical foundation offered a full scholarship to any accredited program he chose, effective the day he turned 18. Malik blinked at the letter, then handed it to Elliot without comment. His silence was louder than any shout. One Tuesday evening, Claire walked no chair, no rails down the facility's main corridor, feet dragging a little, but moving under her own authority. She found Malik alone in the office, tracing a new logo onto fresh grant forms, a stylized staircase of silhouettes rising together. She cleared her throat. He looked up, startled, then awestruck. Claire covered the last 3 steps deliberately and stopped beside his desk. "You started this," she said, echoing a truth she'd rehearsed in her head for weeks. Malik shook his head, eyes bright. "We did." Behind them, through the plexiglass wall, children practiced balance games. Parents counted breaths. Volunteers swapped rice packs from the microwave. A hum filled the building, a machinery of community neither stock market nor storm could disable. Claire reached over, steadied Malik's trembling pen, and together they signed the final page, launching the Thomas Steps Initiative as a state-recognized nonprofit. Ink dried like sunrise across paper. Outside the first spring, thunder rolled across Birmingham. It sounded to both of them like applause.